But the most important thing, the place to start is really looking at who you are becoming. What is that future self that you're creating, right? Because here's the deal, folks. It's when you're able to consistently practice the mindset, habits, and behaviors of your future self, that is when your goal will start manifesting. That is when you really start to work towards your goal, right? You'll also be able to maintain the results you get because you're practicing and eventually mastering those mindset, habits, and behaviors of your future self. All right, everybody, Dr. Del Millers here. How are you? Again, Happy New Year. I know this is what now, the second week of January 2023. Imagine that, second week of January 2023. Happy New Year to you. I'm coming at you from personalfitness.com. I hope you're doing great. As usual, wishing you all the best for this year. So let me ask you this. What is it that you want to accomplish this year? Think about that. I've been asking you to think about this since the end of last year because, that's usually when I kind of take stock of how my year was. What did I accomplish for the year? How did my goals go? I do that before the year begins because, quite frankly, I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, right? I never did. I never set resolutions. So my year actually go from my birthday, which is September 25th, to my birthday of the next year. That's when my year begins. That's usually when I set my goals, especially health and fitness goals, right? Because, I usually take stock. I usually look at myself naked in the mirror. Believe me, I do. I always do the mirror test. I stand naked in front of the mirror, full length mirror, and I look at where I am. What does my body look like? If I want to make changes, what kind of changes do I want to make? That's when I do it. And that's what I recommend for you too, right? Do the mirror test. You can stand naked in front of the mirror and just check yourself out. Just love on yourself a little bit. Come on, just love on yourself a little bit. Doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter if you got a few rolls there. Just love all your rolls. Love yourself. Doesn't matter what you look like, right? You got a pot belly? Rub it up a little bit. Come on. It's time to start learning to love yourself again. Doesn't matter what you look like, right? Think about this, guys. If you don't love yourself, who will? Right? If you don't start loving yourself, why are you going to be willing to do what it takes to change your body? This isn't easy stuff. This is hard stuff, right? It takes time. It takes energy. It takes effort. And think about it, right? If you love yourself, if you really, really love yourself, don't you think you're going to want to do what it takes to create that body that you want, to create the health that you want? Do you think you're going to be motivated to keep doing that over the year? Do you think you're going to be motivated to get up maybe a little earlier to do some cardio? Do you think you're going to be motivated to really be diligent with your eating, whatever your eating plan is, to maintain your eating plan? Think about it. If you really love yourself, if you're really in love with yourself, if you're really loving on yourself, don't you think it makes all that much easier? Don't you think it makes it easier for you to say, nah, I'm good. I don't want that. I can do without that extra piece of cake. I can do without the muffin. I can do without that cookie. Oh, I can do without the ice cream. Oh, I'm just going to stick to what I plan to eat today. I've got a plan. This is what I plan to eat. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to eat all that stuff, right? Again, I always say, what I teach my clients is you got to plan to eat all this stuff that you love to eat. You can't just cut them out. You got to plan to eat. You like cake? Well, you got to plan to eat some cake. You like cookies? You got to plan some cookies in your eating plan. I call that conscious eating, right? So when you eat consciously, when you take charge of when and what you eat, it makes a huge difference from when all the unconscious eating that people do. And we're gonna talk more about that as we going along this year. But anyway, before I get ahead of myself, you see, I really get into all this stuff because it's what I love to do. I really love to get people to the point where they're loving on themselves again. Just learn to love yourself. It doesn't matter what you look like. Just learn to love your bloody self. Learn to love your body. Doesn't matter what it looks like. If you want to change it, well, it's going to be easier to change it if you really start learning how to love yourself. Then you're going to want to take better care of yourself. Right? When you love your dog, well, you take care of it, right? Most people take better care of their dogs than they do themselves. When you have a baby and you're really loving on that baby, don't you do whatever it takes to take care of your baby? Right? Your pet, you really love that pet, you do whatever it takes, right? Because you really love it. You're loving on it. Do the same for yourself, right? And that's what this podcast is about. Learn to love yourself again, right? We learn to rewire the brain. And this podcast is about learning to rewire the brain so that you can get and keep the body you want. Take control of your mind and emotions and learn to love yourself again. That's what we're going to be focused on this year. And there's a reason why I change my podcast to really focus on that. And the biggest reason is, right, get this, folks, habits are created in the brain. Habits are created in the brain. Every habit starts in the brain. Every habit starts as just a thought. And your thoughts control your emotions. Your emotions control your actions, your choices, right? So if you want to change habits, you got to go back to the brain. A habit is nothing more than it's a neurological pathway in the brain, right? It's a circuit. So you want to change a habit, you have to change your brain code. You're never going to change a habit until you change the brain code because every habit is already wired in your brain. And one of the upcoming episodes of this podcast is how to rewire your brain for success, right? We got to talk about how to rewire your brain. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I always do that because I get so excited about talking about this stuff because people talk about fitness and nutrition and all that stuff, and I talk about that stuff too. But it's not the most important stuff. The most important stuff for you is to learn that, well, your brain controls your habits. So to change your habits or to create new habits, you got to learn to work with your brain. You have to learn to, like I like to say, recruit your brain to change your biology. Because your brain is in charge of your biology. So you've got to learn to recruit your brain to change your biology. Change starts in the brain. And until you change your brain code, you're going to be just chasing your tail, right? Your results won't be lasting. You can maintain for a while. You can maintain willpower for a while. But again, another one of my little quotes, biology beats willpower every single day. Biology beats willpower every single day because habits really are, well, they are biology. Right? It's not just something you do. Well, that's biology. Your brain is controlling your biology. Your brain is dictating what you do. Your brain is telling you what to do based on the code that you have programmed in there. In some cases, for some people, that code has been there for decades, right? Think about it. If you're in your 50s, 60s, and beyond, that code has been in there for decades. You've got some habits there that you've been practicing for decades. Why? Because they are wired in there and they are very much subconscious. They're not part of your conscious mind. They are now a part of your subconscious mind. And those are some of the most difficult habits to change. Subconscious habits. Habits that are already wired into your subconscious. Very difficult to change because you're not even aware that they're there. Your brain just executes them automatically based on the triggers that you experience every day, right? Think about this, folks. Only about 5% of what we do every day we're conscious of. The other 95% of things we do every day, we're not even conscious of it because your brain just do them automatically. Your brain just run automatic programs based on the triggers that it gets. So, no, you are really not in charge. You're not in charge, right? Your brain controls what you eat. Your brain controls how you do things. Your brain controls how you respond to the stressors in your life. Your brain controls how you respond to the circumstances in your life. Your brain controls how you respond to getting pissed off and all of that good stuff. Your brain controls how compassionate you are, how selfish you are. All of those things are controlled by your brain because it's already wired in there. You want to change yourself? You want to get better? Then learn about your brain. And that's why I decided to focus more on a brain-based approach to people losing weight, people changing their habits, people creating new habits. Because a lot of people talk about this from the mechanical point of view of doing it. But before you can do it, your actions, people attack things from the point of view of actions, right? You change your actions and you change your results. Yes, that is true. You change your actions, you change your results. But before you can change your actions, you have to change the emotions behind the actions. But before you can change the emotions, you have to change the thoughts that control those emotions. You see? You got to go back to the root cause. The root cause is always the thought. That's how your brain creates habits. Every habit begins as just a thought. Anyway, I am about 10 minutes ahead of myself because I wanted to tell you that, you can check out my resources in the show notes for all the good resources available to you. Number one, you can get on a free health strategy call with me, right? And I do a lot of those free health strategy calls with people all over the country. Every week I do quite a few of those health strategy calls. We get on the phone and we sit down and we talk about what's going on with you. What's up, girlfriend? What's up, my man? What do you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish? What's going on with your body? I deal with a lot of people who are overweight, so I've got a program, Weight Loss Made Easy. Information in the show notes, right? I do nutrition consultation with people. Conscious eating made easy, right? We talk about conscious eating. Again, learn to eat consciously instead of just being led by your unconscious. So all of these things are very important, okay? So here's what I want to talk to you about today, right? Where it's the beginning of the year. And so far we've been talking about, last time I talked about Project You, right? Having this year be about creating a project. And that project is you, Project You, becoming the best you've ever been, striving, working towards becoming the best you've ever been, which is the title of my podcast. So if you haven't listened, well, you're obviously listening to the podcast right now. So thank you for that. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and leave me a rating. A 5-star would be great. I love 5-star ratings, right? I deserve it. I do this for the fun of it. I enjoy doing it, mainly because I love hearing myself talk. Let's be real now. I was a professional speaker for a while, and COVID just threw a wrench in that. And now I do mostly this podcasts and webinars, and eventually I'll get back out there on the stage because nothing beats being in front of a live audience. It just gets me all jazzed up. I love the energy. I love feeding off the crowd. I love being in front of an audience of thousands of people and just feeding off their energy. It is so energizing, right? A lot of fun for me. So eventually I'll get back out there and start doing that again. But until then, you have me here on this podcast every week. And every week I bring you some new insights on how to be the best you've ever been. And believe me, this is as much for me as it is for you, because I am working, everything I talk to you about, I'm not trying to be the guy up on the pedestal here. this is stuff that I'm working through myself because I'm always working on how to be the best myself, right? How to be my best self, how to work towards that future self. So I'm doing all the stuff that I'm talking about here as well, okay? So today I want to talk to you about creating your future self now. Creating your future self now, right? Project You, if you took up my challenge from last week, to have this year be about creating that project you, having you being the project, becoming the best you can be physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Physically, you want to get and keep the body you want, right? You want to look good naked. You want to get your sexy back, right? Don't you? Of course you do. So I want you to go stand in front of that full length mirror naked in your birthday suit and just see where you are and learn to love on yourself, right? If you can look at yourself naked in the mirror and still love on yourself, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter if you've got a bunch of rolls there, it doesn't matter. Learn to love on yourself. Love every inch of your body. And then get to work and start creating what do you really want to look like. That is where this comes in, creating your future self. Now, right? How do you create your future self? Why is it important to create your future self? When I talk to clients about creating their future self, it's kind of hard for some people to see because, it's hard for us to look in the future and tell, who do you want to be? But I ask them, who are you 5 years from now when you have achieved your goal? A lot of people come to me and they're trying to lose a lot of weight. I work with women who've got over 100 pounds to lose. And I've helped clients, men and women, to lose over 100 pounds. Many of them have kept that weight off for years. One client lost 80 pounds and she's maintained it for over 20 years. I've got clients who've maintained that weight loss over 10 years. Clients come to me for health challenges, whether it's diabetes or heart disease, high blood pressure, whatever. And we work on getting them off their medication, get them healthy again so that they can, again, be the best you've ever been. If you're on medication, you're not healthy, right? You've got high blood pressure and you're taking medication, you're not healthy. You're taking medication for any disease, you're not healthy. You're healthy when you have got good metabolic health, where you can maintain excellent metabolic health without being on medication. Okay? So again, what is that future self that you want to create? What does it look like 5 years from now if you have achieved your goal, you have the body you want, you have the health you want, you feel the way you want to, you're living the life that you want. What does that look like? What is that future vision that you're after, right? You got to start at the end. Where do you begin? You begin at the end. I talk to a lot of people and they say to me, well, I just don't know where to begin. You begin at the end. What do you want? What do you want to look like? Stephen Covey, in one of my favorite books of all time, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a classic, it's been around for decades. Back when I was a salesman in corporate America, I used to listen to that on audio tapes all the time, audio cassettes. Do you remember audio cassettes? Well, if you're my age, you remember audio cassettes. You young folks probably have no idea what an audio cassette is. But one of the habits, I think it was a 3rd habit, says begin with the end in mind. And I like to go further than that. I like to say begin at the end. Don't begin with the end in mind. Begin at the end. Actually create the end. Start by creating the end. What do you want to look like? What do you want to feel like? Ladies, what does your body look like? When you stand in front of that mirror naked, what do you look like 5 years from now? When you have achieved your goal, right? What does your body look like? You got to know that. I want you to be able to see it. I want you to be able to feel it and taste it. What do you look like? What do you feel like? What do you have then that you don't have now? What are you after? Why is this all important to you, right? You need to have a clear picture of your future self before you can go about the process of creating her or him. Why is it important to you? You want to begin at the end so that you can practice adopting the mindset, habits, and behaviors of the person you are becoming. Why? Because after a while, you will go from becoming your future self to start being your future self. A very important distinction. There's a difference between becoming and being. right? After a while, as you start to adopt and start to practice those habits of your future self, now you are being your future self. You are being that person. You see the importance of this? So, who is that person? I want you to just get a journal, and I have my clients get a journal, and they do a little visualization. I lead them through a little visualization exercise where they meet their future self. You got to meet your future self. Sit down and talk to that person. Is it as if it's someone different from you? Because your future self is someone different from you. If you're trying to lose 20, 30, 50, 100 pounds, believe me, your future self is someone very different from you, right? Because that is a person who has different habits from you. That is a person who is living a very different lifestyle than you. If you get to the point where you have lost up to 100 pounds and you're able to maintain that, well, you're going to have some different habits than you do now. If you get to the point where you are being the best you have ever been, right? You get to that point where you are living your best life. I hate that term, actually, living your best life, because what does it actually mean? It's become so popularized. And so I'm not going to say living your best life. It's like being the person you want. You are living as your future self. You're going to have different habits than you do now. If you're overweight, you're taking medication, your health is in the pits, right? You're there because you have neglected yourself over the years. You have let some stuff slip, right? You've put some other priorities ahead of yourself. But that's okay. The time to start is now. You can change all that. The time to start is now. You can get back to where you want to be. You can get to where, not even get back to anything. You can get to where you want to be. But before you can get there, you have to know where that is. If I'm taking a trip from San Francisco to New York City, as I did a couple months ago, well, I got to have an idea where I'm going. Otherwise, I can end up anywhere. On my trip from San Francisco to New York City, I talked about that. I actually wasn't paying attention, and when I think I got to about, where was it? Right before Pennsylvania, somewhere around there. I actually took a wrong turn and ended up on, it was before Pennsylvania. I ended up going all the way up towards Wisconsin. I was off course, right? Because I wasn't paying attention, right? I missed the turn on the freeway. So I was off course. I was going off course. I was going north instead of going west. So you got to know where you're going if you're going to know how to get there, right? If I wasn't paying attention, if I didn't know where I'm going, well, I could have ended up in Canada. I wasn't going to Canada. I was going to New York City. So you got to know where you're going so you can know what you need to do to get there, right? You work backwards. I figure out, well, where am I going? I'm going to New York City. Okay, well, how do I get there? What is the route that I need to take to get there? So I work backwards. That's the same way we do. What do you want to look like? What do you want to feel like? What is that future self? Who is that future self? Well, in order to get there, you figure out what you want. Then you figure out, well, what are those habits of my future self? And then I start practicing those habits daily. We're going to talk about that in one of the other upcoming episodes. I call those non-negotiable habits. But the most important thing, the place to start, is really looking at who you are becoming. What is that future self that you're creating, right? Because here's the deal, folks. It's when you're able to consistently practice the mindset, habits, and behaviors of your future self, that is when your goal will start manifesting. That is when you really start to work towards your goal, right? You'll also be able to maintain the results you get because you're practicing and eventually mastering those mindset, habits, and behaviors of your future self. For instance, you're not dieting to lose weight. Then after losing the weight, trying to figure out how to maintain the weight loss. No, you lose the weight by doing exactly what you're going to be doing the rest of your life. What is your future self doing? How did your future self lose the weight? Those are the habits that you have adopted. So I'm not going to go on a diet to lose weight and then try to figure out how to maintain the weight. No, I'm going to learn how to eat like my future self, like the person who has lost 100 pounds. Well, how is that person eating right now? Obviously, that person is eating very differently than I'm eating right now. They're not overeating, right? They learn to eat when they're hungry instead of learn to eat just when they see food or for other emotional reasons. They learn to eat, stop eating when they've had enough, as opposed to constantly overeating until you're full or you're stuffed. They have developed the conscious eating habit. They learn to follow my conscious eating method, right? They learn to ask themselves, well, is this the best choice I can make based on what I'm trying to do? I'm giving my conscious eating method right here. That's how I teach my clients not to count calories or, getting this nonsense about good foods or bad foods. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. All that is coming up in some future episodes. We're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about why to eat and when to eat and all of that fun stuff. But before you get there, you got to start at the end. You got to begin at the end. You got to create that future self now that you are created. You got to have a clear picture of that future vision that you're creating. Does it make sense? I hope all this makes sense, and I can keep rambling on and on, but I think I'm going to stop here. The important thing is, again, who is that future self that you are creating? Get a clear picture. Sit down and visualize who you're becoming. What do you want? What do you look like? What do you feel like? What do you have then that you don't have now? What does it give you? What is your life like? How is your life different then than it is now? How are you living then that you're not living now? How you're able to put yourself first. Put yourself back into your own equation so that you can maintain your self-care. Think about that. That is how you go about the process of creating your future self. And that is where we begin. We begin at the end. All right, my friends, that is all I've got for you today. As usual, before I get there, remember, check out the show notes for all the resources. You can have a free health strategy call with me. Get on the phone and talk about what's going on, what you're looking to create. If this future self concept is something that's new to you and you're having a problem visualizing it or wrapping your head around, well, get on the phone. Sign up for a health strategy call. Right? If nutrition is the thing that's your Achilles heel, get on the phone. We can have a nutrition consultation. Whatever it is, I am available. Check out the links to my webinars. I've got free webinars. I've got lots of free resources. So listen, reach out. I don't want to hear people say, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to begin. Begin at the end. If you're still cloudy, hey, get on the phone. Check the show notes. Sign up for one of the resources that are available to you. They're free. I'm not going to beat you over the head to buy my coaching programs. Majority of people I talk to never become clients because I don't work with everybody. And, we have to see if we gel and if I can help you, number one. I'm not able to help everybody because I'm not the expert at everything, right? If I can help you, I will let you know. And otherwise, I'll try to point you in the right direction for you, okay? All right, my friends, thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave me a rating. 5 stars. And as usual, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. I'll catch you.